Hey guys, today what we're going to be looking at is how to solve um, systems of equations using mixed strategies. So what this is going to look like is I'm not going to tell you what to use, whether it's substitution or elimination. You guys are going to have to choose based off what you see. So for instance, on this first one we're looking at, I have 3x minus y equals 4, and I have 2x minus 3y equals negative 9. And I need to choose whether I want to use elimination or substitution. So the choice is yours. Excuse me. What you can do is you could either use substitution by getting this y by itself, or what I see is if I multiply this top equation by negative 3, I'm going to get a new equation of negative 9x plus 3y is equal to negative 12. So when I do this now and I add the two equations, I can use elimination by eliminating these y's to get negative 7x, and that's going to equal negative 21. So when I divide both sides by negative 7, I'm going to get x is equal to 3. Now that I know what x equals, I go back and look at my original equations, and I say, well, which equation can I plug this in to solve for y? You can plug it in for either the top or the bottom. I'm going to plug it in the top one, so that's going to look like 3 times 3, because that's what we figured out what x equaled, minus y is equal to 4. Then I'm going to get 9 minus y is equal to 4, and then I'm going to minus 9 on both sides to get negative y is equal to negative 5. And if I divide both sides by negative 1, I'm going to get y is equal to 5. So remember, you have to write this in an ordered pair. So your answer would be 3, 5 for your final answer. All right. So let's go ahead now and look at this next one. I already have a variable isolated, so I would recommend solving this with substitution. So every time I see an x, I'm going to substitute 3 minus 2y. So that's going to be 2 times the quantity of 3 minus 2y plus 4y is equal to 6. This will give me 6 minus 4y plus 4y is equal to 6. My y's are going to cancel, and I'm left with 6 equals 6. This is a true statement. When it's a true statement like this, your final solution will be infinitely many solutions. Remember, what does that look like graphically? That means you're going to have two lines where the graph is right on top of each other. So it would be that red line and the yellow line, so they're the same exact line. All right, guys, so looking at this one now, what I want you guys to notice is I would probably want to use elimination, because no matter what I do, if I do try to isolate one of these variables, I'm going to have a weird fraction, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this top linear equation by negative 2. And I want you to notice that this will be negative 18x minus 16y, and that is going to equal negative 14. These x's are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with negative 31y is equal to 0, which means y equals 0. Now, some of us might think that's a little weird to have y equals 0. That's okay. That's no problem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for x. We're going to do that by first plugging in y into one of these equations. So let's go and plug it in the top. I'm going to have 9x plus 8 times 0 equals 7. This will give me 9x is equal to 7. And I'm going to divide both sides by 9 to get x equals 7 over 9. Now, even though it's a weird fraction, that's no problem. So we have 7 over 9 comma 0. And just in case, since it's a weird answer, you want to double check your work, you can always plug it in the other one to make sure you still get the same answer. So on this one, I look for y. I plug in 0 there for y. This would be 18x minus 15 times 0 is equal to 14. This cancels, and I'm left with 18x equals 14. And if I divide both sides by 18, I'm going to get x is equal to 7 over 9 as well. So I get the same answer. So that's how you confirm your answer. Okay, so let's look at this one. This one looks really confusing because I have a lot of fractions. So before I do anything, I'm just going to clear all the fractions because I don't want to work with these. So if I multiply each and every term by 2, I'm going to have x plus 2y is equal to 6. Then on this one, I'm going to multiply each and every term by 16. This would give me 2y minus 8x, minus 8 is equal to negative x. So let's make sure we did that right. 2y minus 8 is equal to negative x. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to ignore these problems over here, the fraction ones, and I'm only going to focus on the new ones I created because they're equivalent and they're a little easier to work with. So I'm going to use substitution, and I'm going to multiply everything by -1 on the bottom. So this would be positive x, positive 8, negative 2y. And now every time I see an x, I'm going to substitute in 2y plus 8. So that was my x value. And then I still have plus 2y equals 6. This will give me 4y plus 8 equals 6. When I minus 8 on both sides, I'm going to have 4y equals negative 2, which means y is going to equal negative 1/2. Okay, so now that I know that y equals negative 1/2, I'm going to choose one of those two equations, and I'll just go ahead and plug it in the top one. I'll do that in purple. That is going to be x plus 2 times negative 1/2 is equal to 6. This will be x plus negative 1 equals 6, which means x is equal to 7. So that means it's going to be 7 comma negative 1/2 is my ordered pair. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this word problem. I put this one on there because we're going to have these over and over, and they're a little tricky, so I want to make sure we know how to do it. So just as a reminder, it's always solution 1 plus solution 2 equals total amount. So on this one, it says a chemist is using 50% acid and 80% acid, and you have to make a solution of 72% acid. So it's basically saying, oh, and I need 600 gallons of it. So it's saying if I take the 50% acid and I add it to the 80% acid, I'm going to have a total of 600 gallons. The second one is I need to include the percents of each one. So this one would look like 0.5x plus 0.8y is equal to 0.72 times 600. So before I start deciding if I'm doing elimination or substitution, I want to turn this into this bottom one. I want to get rid of all the decimals. So I'm going to do that first by multiplying 0.72 times 600. And I'm going to get 432. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply each term by 10 because I want to get rid of the decimals. So if I multiply each term by 10, I'm going to have a new equation of 5x plus 8y equals 4,300. Excuse me, 4,320. So now every time I look at the equations, I only want to focus on this one right here, these two right here. And I can choose to use either elimination or substitution. And I'm actually going to use substitution on this one. Excuse me, I'm going to use elimination on this one. So what I'm going to do is multiply the top one by -5. And this would make the equation look like -5x minus 5y is equal to -3,000. My x's are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with 3y is equal to 1,320. So when I divide both sides by 3, that is going to give me the total amount of gallons I need in 80%. So that's going to be 1,320 divided by 3 equals 440. So y equals 440. So that means I need, out of my 600 gallons, 440 of them are going to be the 80% solution. So to figure out what the other gallons of the 50% solution is, we just solve for x. And that would be x is equal to 160. Now to figure that out, I just plugged 440 into that first equation that I came up with. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, please feel free to email me or your teacher. Have a great day.